Well, Stephen A., do you agree with this strategy of walking Harper?
Absolutely not. And I think it's a disgrace, and I think it robs baseball fans. And I think it's ultimately going to crucify the sport. Listen, you know, I read an article from the Washington Post back in April of 2015 where Commissioner Rob Manfred said at the time, if I'm quoting him accurately, he said the biggest single predictor or indicator of a sport, of interest in the sport and the avidity of a sport is, you know, whether or not you played as a youth. And what you're finding now is that the sport itself, it hasn't successfully gone about the business of ingratiating itself with the youth of America because it's perceived as being, and primarily it is, a thinking man's game. It's certainly not to say that baseball players are devoid of skill. Of course, they have tremendous skill. It takes tremendous skill to hit a 95-mile-per-hour fastball, and a 95-mile-per-hour fastball, a 90-mile-per-hour curve or slider, or whatever the case may be. Just ask Bryce Harper. If these pitchers did their homework, they'd recognize that if you ain't throwing fastballs low and outside, and you're throwing it a little bit high, whether it's a fastball, a cutter, or a slider, he's going to struggle with that, as lethal and elite as he is. And so when we look at it from that perspective, you would like to think that professional pitchers who've ultimately successfully gone about the business of elevating themselves to Major League Baseball level would have the cojones or beyond to step up and pitch to this man. I don't think Roger Clemens would have walked him. I don't think Randy Johnson would have walked him. I don't think some of the elite pitchers in baseball history would have ever thought about walking him. A Nolan Ryan, for example, and others. They would have went up there and they would have said, it's me against you. Let's get it on. But that's the problem with today's sport that is Major League Baseball. You get paying customer out there working for their hard-earned money, coming out to the park. Skip, you know this as well as I do. Even though I'm very, very happy and proud to see Dusty Baker as the manager for the Washington Nationals, the fact of the matter is you're walking through the turnstiles to see primarily Bryce Harper. You want to see this brother play. You want to see him hit. You want to see him trying to get a hit as opposed to being walked 6 times, walked 13 times in a series. That's just highway robbery. That's not taking into account the fans that are there. And for those that would make the argument that, you know what, Stephen A., this is it just comes with the game. I hope Major League Baseball players are listening instead of living in their own cocoon, paying attention to how they do things. Let me throw out some numbers at you because I got our stat guy, David Sabino, to give me these stats
That's 2 references to Sabino?
That's right.
In one show?
I got to help. I got to give the brother some love. Skip, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
He's helping you a lot today, I got to admit.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is, because I needed these numbers. Look at this, Skip. When we talk about, according to the Nielsen ratings, 50% of baseball viewers are now 55 years of age or older.
Sure.
Which is up from 41% 10 years ago. So in the last 10 years, the age group is, I mean, you're talking about, look at the growth. And then you talk about the data. Average age, 53 for baseball, 47 for the NFL, 37 for the NBA. The NFL and the NBA have gone about the business of successfully ingratiating themselves with the youth of America. Baseball is stuck with their tradition. They've ignored the youth of America. Their audience is getting older, and before long, if they keep this nonsense up, they're not going to have an audience. You cannot ask dads to bring their sons and their families to games. You can't market great players like Bryce Harper and Trout and all of these boys and then go out there and you get to see them walk in the base because they don't even get an opportunity to swing. You can't do that to people and expect the sport, the interest in your sport, to elevate. It's going to dissipate. It's going to continue to do so. The audience is going to get older. And before long, you're going to have a limited number of people even wasting their time watching baseball. I'm telling you that right now.
Yep. We've said that many times on this show, and I am with you on that. I ask you a question. Who won all 4 games of this series?
Wasn't it the Cubs?
It was the Cubs won all 4. So
right.
Bryce Harper's team did not win any of these 4 games.
Exactly.
Is Joe Maddon's job to entertain the paying customers or to win baseball games?
Win baseball games.
I think it's to win baseball games. And I'm sure Cubs fans were wildly entertained by what they saw in all 4 games over the weekend. It is not Joe Maddon's fault that there's a huge loophole in the rules. And I get what you say about the competitive spirit of the game is you just challenge. I got to tell you, from my heart, I covered Barry Bonds' astonishing run to the home run record in 2001. August, September, I attended many of the games home and away, covered most of them. I can't tell you how many times I sat back and thought, if I were the opposing manager, I would walk Barry Bonds every time, because his lineup protection, the guy hitting behind him in the cleanup spot, was Jeff Kent. You remember Jeff Kent?
Yeah, the guy you called Jeff Kent.
Jeff Kent. Thank you, because he couldn't in those spots. The stage was too big for him to protect Barry, to take advantage of. Barry's walked, so now I got to cash in. He just couldn't do it enough. He was a nice player, a very good player, but he wasn't that guy. He wasn't that guy through that stretch run. My point is, neither is Ryan Zimmerman. He's a one-time All-Star. When was Ryan? Back in 2009. He's hitting .236 right now. He went 2 for 15, did Ryan Zimmerman, in this series as the lineup protection to Bryce Harper. So my point is, this is the opposite of hack a whomever in pro basketball, because in that case, you're taking advantage of the opponent's glaring weakness. That guy can't shoot free throws. In this case, you are eliminating the opponent's greatest offensive strength because the rules allow it. Because to me, even though the seam heads, the Moneyball guys keep telling me, oh, but that'll come back to bite you. It'll come back to haunt you if you keep putting that guy on first base, first base, first base. Baloney, it will. It's Bryce Harper, about the closest thing, it's Trout or Harper, that we've seen to Barry Bonds in impact, offensive impact. I'm putting him on every time because it is psychologically debilitating to the whole team. You just put him on first base again. You gave him a quote-unquote free pass. If I'm the opposing manager, I'm walking Bryce Harper every time. You could scoff at me, laugh at me, ridicule me. I'm going to win the game. It's going to improve my chances to win by putting him on first base 7 straight times if that's what I have to do. I'm sorry, it's a loophole in the rules.
I know it's a loophole, and I know factually you're correct, but it doesn't mean that your position is any less shameful. You're talking about competition. You're talking about sports. Skip Bayless, if this is the playoffs, although I would never justify 6 times, you understand it. If you're going after a pennant, you understand it. It's May. It's May, and you're walking a guy 6 times in a month of May? That just shows that you're not thinking about the fans at all, and you're not thinking about the entertainment aspect. You're not. I understand that, and so what I'm saying to you is, you wouldn't have a problem with that, but I would, because last time I checked, let me finish. Last time I checked, Joe Madden ain't managing for free. He's getting that money from somewhere. Where the money come from? It comes from the fans who patronize your sport. And I'm not saying it's his job specifically. I'm not calling out Joe Madden. Of course not. You're a manager. That's your job. You gotta go about the business trying to win the game. I understand it. I'm saying that Major League Baseball has to do something. You cannot do this to people. You can't rob people of their hard work and money like this. You are robbing them.
So,
and you can't justify that, Skip.
Would baseball ever go so far? Now, this would be a shocking change, and baseball has been averse to change for hundreds of years, it seems like. Okay, could you change it to where if you walk a guy a 2nd time, he gets 2nd base, and a 3rd time, he gets 3rd base? Would they do that?
Well, you're going into the specific remedy, and I respect that. I'm saying to you, that's your way of saying it. You know what I would do? I would mandate eradicating intentional walks from the game. Me personally, I'm telling you, that's how extreme.
But how you can unintentionally intentionally walk.
I understand that.
Intentionally, unintentionally. You know,
I understand
you don't have
that, but
to
it
do
would be
for, you know. Okay.
I understand it, but it would be harder to get away with if you know you have literally, by rule, eliminated the intentional walk. I know that's extreme. I know that robs the sport of strategy. I get all of that.
I know, but
it's you're in danger of damaging the sport when you do. I'm telling you right now, Skip. How many times have I told you the story about how I went to New York because Barry Bonds doesn't come to Yankee Stadium? I was so disgusted. I was so disgusted.
I know. I'm with you. But again, they didn't care. The Yankees were trying to. It was Yankees, right?
I know.
They were trying to win the game. Why don't you take the bat out of Barry Bonds' hands? Because the rules allow you to.
Well, let me ask you this question. Let me ask a question there, Skip. And see, this is where, to me, your argument goes awry. You know Nolan Ryan. You can go back to the days of Bob Gibson.
Well.
You could give me Randy Johnson. Would they have ever done that?
Nope. Too much pride.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, how many of those guys were there or are there?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. But that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, excuse me, you have to sit up there and deal with this man. That's what sport is supposed to be about, and nobody flagrantly robs the viewing public of that reality more so than baseball.
Okay,
is that disputable? Is that disputable?
It's not, but you cannot legislate competitive spirit. You have to.
You can try.
You're going to have to change the rules.
You can try.
Well,
that's all I'm saying.
So you tell people, have the guts to stand up to Bryce Harper and throw in fastballs.
No, I'm not saying fastball. I'm saying you have to pitch to the man. You can't sit up there and ask people to come and watch folks play and then walk the star, the #1 gate attraction. Walk this man 6 times.
But would you rather pitch to Ryan Zimmerman or Bryce Harper?
Of course, we know the answer to that, Skip. That's a given. That's a given. But what I'm saying is, let's take you talk the foul with DeAndre Jordan, the Andre Drummonds of the world, and all of that. We understand. But Skip, over the last 2 minutes, what happens? You're not allowed to do certain things without punitive damages because they said you can't just continue to do this and circumvent dealing with Chris Paul or Blake Griffin or somebody. You got to play. Okay,
if you did the one more base for each additional walk, then look what would have happened yesterday with Bryce Harper. He'd be scoring on walks. Like his last, 3 or 4 walks, he would just score. Like, oh, you just put him on home plate. Way to go. Okay, that might stop you.
I'm not even arguing the specifics with you because I understand there's a plethora of things we could come up with to alleviate the problem in some capacity. I'm just speaking about baseball and the dissipated level of interest on the part of the younger generation, and I'm highlighting this as a primary cause of it. Other sports, you get to live in the moment.
I agree.
Yep.
Baseball, guys, you just sitting out there eating sunflower seeds with your shades on. They could smoke a cigar in outfield for crying out loud. It's ridiculous.
It is.
It's ridiculous.
I'm with you. I agree.
All right, you know who else is not robbing the public of his presence? That would be Sam Bradford. He returns to Eagles camp today. The guys will tell you what they make of it after the break. Stay with us.
I'll tell you what you ain't got.